Namaskar. We are here today to understand reusable luxury and eyewear. And today we have with us a revered international expert, Dr. Martina Olbert, to help us gain insights with a global perspective. Hello and welcome to Optician India, Martina.
Hello and namaste.
For the
Hello.
benefit of Indian audiences, would request you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Very happily will do that. Well, first of all, let me thank you for the invitation to speak with you today and do this great interview. And my name, as you said, is Dr. Martina Olbert. I am a brand advisor, a social scientist, consumer psychologist, and a speaker and writer on the new meaning of luxury, looking effectively at the greater global cultural and social changes and how that's impacting the luxury market and the meaning of brands. I am also the founder and CEO of a consultancy company called Meaning.Global, where I am helping brands and businesses around the world reconnect with the fundamental core values, reconnect with meaning and human essence, essentially to bring more value and create more relevance in people's everyday lives, and therefore create much more long-term and stronger, authentic connections between brands and people.
Martina, just one question. It looks
Mhm.
more like an Indian connect. The kind of values you have, they match very well with the Indian psyche, as we would put it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was just thinking about it as you asked me to do this interview with you, that my own philosophy and coming really to the very basics and the fundamental human values, back to humanity, back to our lost connection with our spirituality, it seems very much in line with the Indian psyche and Indian philosophy, as you're a very ancient country and culture yourself, built on this tradition of spirituality and yoga and Ayurveda and all of these things I actually am learning about and have great interest in, as we are obviously coming much more closer and transitioning towards the new luxury paradigm, which effectively is the great return to our own sense of self, our own soul, connecting back to who we are as authentic human beings and retrieving that lost connection through the, like last 70 years, living in the context of consumerism and global society and really effectively losing that sense of self. So now we are venturing back to ourselves and back to our humanity and effectively understanding that we are spiritual beings in the human body. So absolutely, this is very much in line with India, and I'm very happy to be talking about this with you today.
Well, thank you, Martina. My first question is, we have seen multiple research reports and articles cropping up now and then on
Hmm.
reusable or pre-loved luxury
Hmm.
and its relevance considering the changing Gen Z segment preference.
Hmm.
However, as an eyewear user yourself, what's your take on this topic?
What's my take on this topic? So you mentioned Gen Z and you mentioned obviously reusable and pre-loved luxury. So those two, believe it or not, actually greatly connected because I talked a little bit in the introduction about this transition towards the new luxury paradigm, which is effectively us coming back to our core human needs and values. So it's no longer very much about the brand aspirations and us, venturing into this big brand illusory world and, interacting with brands around their, like how they would like to see us, but rather from brands venturing back to people and around their authentic needs and values and delivering what's meaningful to them in their own lives. So if you are looking at this paradigm shift effectively from brands to people, you suddenly understand why pre-loved luxury is a thing and why the new generation of millennials and Gen Z, why for them sustainability and ethical values and meaningful consumption and buying something that generates real integral value in their lives, why that's important to them. So from this perspective, it makes greater sense. As for my own perspective, as a as a luxury user, and I do have, we spoke about this before, I do have two pairs of sunglasses from designer brands. I have one Tom Ford, which I absolutely love, and then I have Prada sunglasses, which I use as my everyday eyewear. So I do have a personal experience. Pre-loved luxury from the perspective of sustainability and ethical human values, that obviously is a huge booming segment because as we are shifting more towards the long-term mindset, we understand that we don't really need to create more and more and more of luxury goods, but rather that their value is inherent in the good itself. So you don't need to pay for the brand new product because the inherent meaning of that product is going to be the same. So that opens up the door to pre-loved luxury as a big booming target market. And also another thing that is opening up the doors to the pre-loved or reusable luxury is this idea that when you look back at who the traditional consumers of luxury brands used to be, they used to really design their collections for one type of person, one persona in mind. So you back in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you could say, okay, I am an Yves Saint Laurent kind of person, or I'm the Chanel woman, or I'm this, or I'm that. I really identify strongly with that particular one brand. Well, as we are moving more towards our own humanity and understanding that we are all diverse and different, and not just within the society, but in our own selves. We have, sometimes I want to be very flashy and colorful, and sometimes, I want to be more formal when I'm going for an interview, and sometimes when I have fun with friends, I want to experience and experiment more. So you essentially have a greater diversity of needs and opportunities and occasions within one person, and therefore it no longer really makes sense to be spending all your money for that one particular item from one designer, because you can just pick and choose whatever you like. And for this greater experimentation, the pre-loved luxury market is a perfect opportunity to buy things that have the inherent value. They are still luxurious, they are still very nicely made and have the sense of aesthetics and are designer items, but you can buy more of them because they're less expensive, and therefore you have a greater pool of opportunities how to express yourself. And this is very important for Gen Z and for millennial generation, because we are actually, I'm one of them, I'm the millennial generation, because we are much our need is much more to express our own authentic sense of self. So the identity of the customer is actually becoming the most important thing about how brands can authentically connect with us as a consumer cohort.
Do you really think resale of eyewear, especially sunglasses, is a possibility?
Do I think it's a possibility? So yes, it is a possibility, but from my own personal experience, so here's the thing. It is a possibility in theory because of what I just said. You can buy, these designer items for less amount of money, and therefore you can buy different sense of, different styles and pick and choose and have 5, 10, 20 different sunglasses. They're all designer and are all very, very beautiful and help you express a different part of your identity. That's all great. But what I particularly find as a bit of a challenge is that when I go to some of these pre-loved luxury stores, it seems that especially with eyewear, the designs tend to go out of style very quickly. So for some reason, eyewear tends to be a very, fashionable and a trendy item. And the sense of style tends to change very drastically in between seasons. So if I were to go to a pre-loved luxury store and look for a bag, I could definitely still find a bag or a wallet for that matter that has a timeless sense of design and that very much complements my own, closet sense of identity, and I could very much wear it. With eyewear, it's very difficult, because it's an essential item, so it needs to fit your personality, and also it sits directly on your face, right? So it needs to have the proper measurements, the proper proportions. Then there's the hygienic factor, which is a kind of a big factor. It's with a bag, you don't mind as much because you can still, clean it. But with eyewear, even though, we talked about this before in the call, right? Even though you can like submerge it into the solution and you can make sure that all the germs are 100% dead, it still feels very strange to wear something that another person wore before you directly on your face, because like this part is the most intimate part that you have. It's like a jewelry for your face. So that there is this, I mean, even though it's not a problem from the practical point of view, from the emotional point of view, it's still something that a little bit, I would hesitate a little bit with eyewear, from a secondhand market. But even if you were able to clean it completely, the most important hang up is that luxury companies need to figure out how to create eyewear that is timeless, or how to, and we probably skipping into the next question now, but they need to figure out how to diversify the collections of eyewear that they're making, so that they create fashionable items equally to very much iconic statement pieces that are timeless in their design, and that are not very likely to go out of style anytime soon.
Picking on the cue from your answer, I would like to, I would like to ask you, in your opinion, does this eyewear category needs another set of rules than the regular luxury category?
Yes and no. So I would say that it actually, that it, as it stands right now, it seems to have different set of rules, but it shouldn't. So you should be able, the same way that you are diversifying in a much greater way in terms of clothing and in terms of accessories, you should be able to do the same exact thing with eyewear. So you have haute couture, you have ready-to-wear collection, you have, statement pieces, you have essential everyday pieces, you have, luxury essentials, comfortable luxury. That's your white trainers. Everybody is, every single luxury brand is now doing white trainers because they bought into this love of Gen Z for the streetwear, right? So they want to be more part of your everyday life, and therefore they're, turning more towards essential everyday luxury. So the same, actually, if you think about it, should be true for eyewear. You should be able to figure out how to greatly diversify the occasions and the styles and the needs and also the functional properties of eyewear as a category. So something that we picked up on, I think, that the last time that we talked, Madhur, is this biological component of eyewear, right? We are now in the COVID pandemic, and there is no reason why you couldn't combine the biological, preventative protection factor with luxury and design and sense of aesthetics. So this is one great way to diversify eyewear as a category, for example.
Right. So in the context of more environmentally responsible consumers and changing preferences, do you foresee any need for a major shift for eyewear marketers?
For eyewear marketers, I would say for eyewear marketers as any other marketers, there is this fundamental need to understand the greater complexity of the world and how it impacts the brands that you're trying to manage. So this is actually something that me and Pam Danziger just talked about yesterday at Fashion Tech Week in Italy. It was virtual, but still, it was the first of its kind Fashion Tech Week in Milan, and we talked about conscientious luxury, the great luxury reset, and how it's absolutely paramount for marketeers and brand managers in luxury to understand and properly interpret the greater complexity of the consumer, of the global culture, and of all the disruption that we are a part of. In terms of managing brands, it's very important to be aware of the fact that every single brand lives in the context of the world it tries to be a part of, because it's embedded in the culture, and culture is created by these constantly evolving sets of needs and values that people have. And without understanding, how these values are shifting, where they're shifting, and especially why they're shifting, the brands and even eyewear brand, cannot really be relevant. So that could mean, looking really in depth at what ethical consumption really means, and what is an ethical brand, and what does sustainability mean in terms of not just a trend or a buzzword, in terms of just ethically sourcing the product materials, but also being mindful of the fact that it's a circular economy, it's a circular brand and business model, and you need to have respect to each and every single point in that business model, uh, to make sure that the value that you create is ethical and meaningful to the consumer. So I would say, to your question, just greater awareness of the context and of the world that you are a part of as a brand and a business, which obviously comes back to the very beginning of our conversation, which is the return to our spiritual self and human essence, because the self-awareness and the sort of raising the human consciousness, that's not just something that we need to do as individuals. It's also something that we need to bring into business.
We appreciate and thank you for taking out your time from your busy schedule at such a short notice. Thank you for being a part of Optician India.
Thank you so much for asking me to this interview. I really
And with the
enjoyed it.
overwhelming response to your earlier writer and
Uh-huh.
ensuing debates, I'm sure you have become an instant hit with the readers here. We look forward to more such interactions with you in the future.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.